So then, in today's video, let's talk about lifts running in service safety bypassed. Something that should never happen. So far, I've never come across a lift where the entire lift is safety bypassed and the lift is in service. But it does happen. It seems like it's an issue of this happening quite a bit in Russia. Hopefully in the UK and the EU this should be incredibly rare. But this is a good lesson of why you should never rely on stuff to work. Because you never know. Human error exists and you should never put your situation where you depend on something. So let's start off by talking about what is a safety circuit. A safety circuit is a relay circuit and makes sure the lift cannot move when the doors are open. In the modern day it's split into three parts: emergency stop safety, inner door safety and outer door safety. Although on a modern day lift it has quite a few different bits and features to it. You also have pre-doors safety bypass, which runs the lift with the doors open when it's levelling the floor or when it's re-levelling. Then also on MRLs you can bypass the governor and limit switches on cabinet inspection, so you can still run the lift if it's overrun. So without going into the more complicated details of that, sticking just to how the safety circuit works, it is relay controlled. It cannot be overridden. If all of the relays for safe are not set correctly, the lift cannot move, and that cannot be overridden by software. Something that does worry me is that in the modern day there's an over-dependence on software, and I do worry in the future as attitudes change more and more towards a software focus. Hopefully this will never happen, but if ever the safety circuit got abandoned in the future in favour of software, that would be scary. I do worry that some really nasty cheap Chinese logics might be heading that way or might already do that, I don't know. The other thing that worries me is if some of these really cheap Chinese logics, where they do still have relays but they haven't followed the principle of how it works. For example, if ever the software could make the safety relay activate rather than it being a completely separate system, that would defeat the whole thing. Thing is, I did a computer science course at university. It was I don't really want to talk about uni, but it wasn't great. But one of the things that really shocked me was the attitude there. The attitude from both the staff and the students at everything was based around software, including various scenarios and coursework, where it was blindingly obvious that software can't fully be trusted on something and you always need a relay backup on something safety critical like that. It was never discussed. Everything was about making your software work. But the thing is, you can never completely guarantee software's bug-free. Plus, on certain microprocessors, when the chip is overvolted, all of the outputs go true. So you can't rely on software. You have to have a relay safety circuit as a relay lockout on machinery, especially with lifts. Now, the subject of that side of things isn't the main subject of the video. Instead, let's focus more on how the safety circuit works, because software can be used for good, and that is when the relay safety circuit and the software complement each other as two separate entities. Neither can overrule each other, they work separately. This is called dual redundancy, two separate systems making sure the lift is safe. Relays guarantee a lift cannot move if all the doors are not shut, and that's fixed as relay logic. The software also does the same thing in its software, make sure the lift doesn't move if the doors are not shut, but the relays make sure the software never goes wrong, and the software makes sure that the relays don't get stuck and the safety is never bridged. Although in practice that last detail doesn't always seem to work, so I've gone to lifts safety bypass to test whether the software will detect the safety bypass and shut a lift down, which is what it's supposed to do. And often it doesn't, either because engineers have disabled a feature because it activates unnecessarily, or as lifts have certain flaws where the safety doesn't necessarily disconnect at the floor, so the feature can't be used. But that side of things doesn't always work. But apart from that detail, the two systems, software and relays, as long as they're separate and neither can interfere with each other, two separate dual redundant systems, that is how things should be. So then, let's talk about lifts being run safety bypassed. Something that should never happen. Hopefully I'll never come across a lift that's fully safety bypassed in service. Anyway, let's now get on to the next thing I want to talk about, and that is to do with engineers bypassing safety. Engineers bypass safety to fix a lift because they have to move a lift if it's not working to be able to fix it, so they have to be able to bypass safety. They do that by putting in bypass loop wires to bypass different bits of the lift to get it to run. In the modern day, on Cone KCE lifts and the later versions of Cone LCE, there's a really good feature, and that is easy bypassing. So there's actually switches in the logic cabinet to bypass inner door safety and outer door safety. And the reason why that feature is so good, by making bypassing easier, it means that engineers are going to use those buttons to bypass the safety rather than putting in jumper loops. That means that the engineer is never going to forget to take out a jumper loop, because that is human error. If an engineer forgets to put the safety bypass loop in the lift and they leave it like that, that is incredibly dangerous. But because of the easy bypass feature, the engineer cannot forget to disable those bypasses because the lift simply won't run in normal if those bypasses are active. Now I think that feature on cone lifts is really good because it literally solves the issue. So let's now talk about, have I ever found a lift in service with safety bypassed? Well, I found lifts where there's an abandoned floor, where that floor, which the lift never uses. Sometimes the floor is so abandoned it's not even in the logic. Sometimes the floor is in the logic but a lift never stops there. Sometimes on that abandoned floor, safety's bypassed to that floor, because sometimes when the lift's been modernised and all of the doors replaced, sometimes on the abandoned floor, the door on that floor has never been replaced on the basis that the lift's never going to stop there again. Or some abandoned floors, the door's so rusty and dodgy because it never stops it, and the engineer's just gone, oh fuck his door, let's bypass it. So I have found individual floors safety bypassed, but I've never found a lift where the entire thing is safety bypassed. Although I have found that on lifts that are not in service, such as when the engineer's in the middle of repairing a lift, or on lifts where the lift is abandoned and no longer used. I've literally gone and switched it on to see if the lift turns on. On those lifts I found them completely bypassed, but that doesn't matter because the lift's not intended for use anymore. So, I've never actually found a lift completely bypassed so far. But when you're lift surfing, it is a worry because you're relying on everything to work. And that is a good reminder of safety issues around lift surfing. Always independently verify every single feature of a lift, from safety circuits to inspection controls to whether the up and down buttons work. Everything you have to verify yourself. You can't rely on anything to work. So when surfing a lift, you need to think what's going on, what a lift's going to do, and what you need to rely on, and never allow a situation to happen where you're relying on a feature to work when you haven't independently verified that a feature does actually work. So you never know, the feature might not work. I've had up buttons not work, I've had lifts that have gone weird on inspection, I've had lifts refuse to drive, so you can never rely on stuff. And that's especially the case with the safety circuit. Always make sure you safety brake a lift, so you're disconnecting the safety circuit when you open the doors while the lift is moving to verify a lift stops. With that said, I'm quite a dodgy lift surfer, but sometimes when I want to do a full speed ride on the lift, I want to get on discreetly without a lift emergency stopping so it doesn't show out of service, so security doesn't notice that anyone's gone on the lift. Especially when I set up a full speed ride and I don't want it to cancel the calls because it's got safety breakers. Sometimes I jump on top of the lift while serving the floor below while the doors are open, so I haven't verified that safety works so I can get a full speed ride. Please don't copy me on that, because what I'm doing is bloody dangerous. When I do some of those full speed surfs where I set it up then surf like that, where I'm not independently verifying that a lift stops when you open the doors, that is really fucking dangerous. I only do that because I'm very experienced. I'd not advise anyone to copy me. If you're going to surf a lift, make sure you're independently verifying that a lift does stop when you open the door before you get on top it. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is I've actually been sent some clips of a lift where safety is bypassed. It appears that inner door safety is bypassed on this lift. The person that sent me this randomly come across this in a shopping centre in France. They opened up the inner doors while the lift was moving, expecting the lift to stop, and it just carried on. So it does happen. Lifts are run safety bypassed, either because the lift engine is lazy and doesn't want to fix the problem, so they bypass it so the lift works, which is fucking dangerous, or the engineer is incompetent and forgets to take out their bypass when they've finished maintaining the lift. Either way, it does happen. It's human error, and it's really not good. So take a look at this video, which shows that sometimes you do find lifts running safety bypassed, and it is scary.
Ah, ça c'est un bébé. Ah, lui il n'est pas chanté.
Là, c'est sécurité.
L'écran il est pas ouf. L'écran il est cassé. Oh, lui il n'est pas chanté.
On fait l'autre. On se casse.
Oh là, c'est noir.
peux gratter comme ça.